Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monterey Public Library's Monterey Magical History Tour with Tim Thomas. We have a great program for you. One thing is just for housekeeping rules. I'm going to ask everyone to mute themselves just to help limit the distractions. So if you're not muted and I mute you, it's just to help limit distractions. And then as for questions, we're going to have plenty of time for questions at the end. But if something does come up, please feel free to place it in the chat. And then either I will read them at the very end for Tim, Kent, and James. So from there, Tim, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sean, and welcome everyone to another fun edition of Monterey's Magical History Tour. I think we're actually coming up on our year anniversary of me doing this program, and the Monterey Library still puts up with me, which I think is an amazing thing. Also want to say happy St. Patrick's Day to all of us out there, all of us of Irish descent, or even if you're not of Irish descent. Happy Thanksgiving, happy St. Patrick's Day. So we have a fun, interesting program today. I know a lot of folks out there have a lot of interest in the Pat Hathaway Collection, and I thought this would be a good time to talk about it. Of course, both Mr. Seavey and I here have knew Pat for quite a few years, and I've used his collection for many, many years. And there was a lot of interest and a lot of concern what was going to happen to that collection. And luckily, Kent was able to be the guy that sort of became the executor of the estate and was one who finally made that decision. And so I thought this would be a good place where you can sort of go into that a little bit, Mr. Seavey, how you came up with that decision and where the collection ended up.
Well, there was considerable discussion. Let me say that Steve Travail and Ian Martin and Jeff Dunn were involved in this to begin with. I had been doing some business with Pat, in fact, a week in advance of his passing, before his passing. And I had made a call on that Monday to come in and see him. And I was told that he had passed. And you know, Pat has passed many times in my lifetime, and so made assumption that they were in error. So I went over with what I needed to get, and a friend of his was there in the house. She had unfortunately been there when the body was found, and so I asked her, did she have any access to the relatives? And she did not have access to the relatives, according to her. So the next day or the day after, the first article came out in I believe, the Pacific Grove newspaper, and began with valuable. And so I said to myself, that's dangerous stuff. Valuable historic collection in a closed house in a small town. And so I had a call from Ian Martin, who was genuinely concerned as well. And then Steve got a hold of me, and the three of us got together. Jeff Dunn jumped into the game, and we tried to find out where any errors or signs were, and there weren't any that we could discern. So we determined to get to an attorney and see what could be done. We did, very good attorney. He suggested that one of us take over as administrator on an interim basis until we could discover anybody who is in the family still around, because there was no record of anybody. So we did that, and unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, I drew the short straw. And within that context, then we began the search for family members. First, we did this. We made sure that we secured the building. So we locked it. I had somebody I knew who was willing to stay in the building, who I trusted implicitly. That happened. So we were comfortable with the physical securing of the building. Then we began a sort of a long and drawn out process of determining what was going on with Pat. Pat had a half brother in France, still has a half brother in France. That half-brother, unfortunately, was doled out to an orphanage at the time that Pat came to the United States in about 1952. However, over the period of the year we were involved in it, we did find him. Fortunately, Steve Travail knew of him. And so we chased him down and were able to determine that because of the line of succession, i.e. that Pat's estate was in his mother's name, that individual did not qualify for consideration. We did find a series of distant step relatives in Olympia, Washington, who in fact were, or purportedly were, until the business of the blood relatives was resolved. That being said, we looked around a little bit, and Pat was a punctilious fellow in relation to his collection. It was all in one place, and it was in order. Not necessarily a superb order, but in Pat's order, and that was grand, because that was going to make life a heck of a lot simpler for any institution that received the documentation. And that became one of the key elements in the search. That is, can you take it all from this location, move it specifically as it's set up into another location that has the best possible environmental controls?
So can I ask you one question? So there was at any point, was it ever discussed, you might split up that collection and keep Monterey things just in Monterey?
No. No, never any discussion. Number one, that would have put us in that house for probably 2 years, I think. It was a matter of the entire collection going someplace because A, it was intact. It was serialized, and several thousand of the images were digitally recorded. I was the registrar in the Avery Brundage collection of Oriental art at the DeYoung Museum for a year or two, and I had to count it. And from a registrar's point of view, if you have 10,000 things and you know what number 1 is and number 10,000 is, life is a heck of a lot simpler from going to this box and that box and wondering what's next. So this was a rare occasion where a collection was intact in one location. And so that made it one of the determining features of where it should go. Because of the amounts of money involved in everything, it seemed reasonable if you could save the amount of money it would take to get it to the point where you could work with the collection on a regular basis. That would be money well saved. And that's how we approach it. Then the next step was to go through the documentation on archival ethics and set up a body of information that we needed to have to know that if you have this, then you're a logical agent for the collection. Pat had I'd been working with Pat for 10 or 12 years, sort of quietly trying to get him a job. And one of those jobs was with the city of Monterey, which Dennis Copeland worked very, very hard on. At the time the opportunity had presented itself, Pat did what Pat usually does. He decided, no, that's not enough. And so that fell by the wayside. He was discussing the possibility of transferring the collection to Cal at Berkeley, to the Bancroft. He had conversation with them. So our attorney wrote to the Bancroft, to the individual in question, and received a letter saying, yeah, we'd love to have it, but we don't have any money. So we're probably going to stick it in the West Oakland warehouse for the next 35 years.
Well, no one will ever see it.
No one will ever see it. That being said, we then looked at Cal State Monterey Bay, which the individual who responded to us from Cal said that would be a logical location. We went to them, they came to us, looked at the collection and determined it was not in their purview. That was fine. And then the two agencies here that had the capacity to deal with it were the City of Monterey, the Library of Monterey, and the Monterey County Historical Society. One of the problems with, well, the problems, generally speaking, with any other agency here was physical space available, environmental capacity to deal with, and also professional staff to work with the collection. So we put together a proposal with all of the things that we determined were necessary to deal with that collection in the best manner, in the safest manner, and logically in the most, what shall I say, fundable format for any nonprofit agency or the like, or community foundation, et cetera, to respond to. And it ended up being the Monterey County Historical Society, who has an excellent environmentally sound facility with non-liquid fire suppression. An individual who had the background and the skill to deal with the collection, volunteers, and already had on hand a very extensive collection of Monterey County records dating back to the Diseños of the Californianos that were being dealt with at the time we made the distribution, doing digitalizing for the institution free of charge. We also knew that we needed to deal with the county with the legal aspects of the collection. Was it going to be appraised? That would have probably taken a year at least. If it was not going to be appraised, or if we could do something with the county showing that it was going to a suitable and capable institution, they would give us a break. The collection was appraised at $100. That saved the agency that would have been the recipient what we had been bid at $27,000 just to go through it. So we tried to go tippy-toe through the tulips on this thing and get it right the first time, and I'm comfortable that that occurred.
Yeah, you guys did. So James, how do you feel about all that?
Well, let me just preface before going on. I'm certainly committed professionally in all of the aspects for the long-term preservation of Mr. Hathaway's collection, but he personally also meant a very great deal to me. I first met him in 1986 when I was 12. And so he put up with me for almost 30 years, and were it not for people like him, I wouldn't have become the historian and servant of the Historical Society. So I owe him a great debt of gratitude, as we should all owe specifically Kent and Mr. Ferry, Mr. Hathaway's estate lawyer, who both spent such a substantial amount of time and energy making sure that this amazing collection, the finest of its kind as far as I'm concerned on the entire West Coast, remain resident in our region.
So what kind of future plans do you have for the collection?
Well, what I'd like to do, I would like to spend a little bit of time explaining to all of our participants here who we are as the Monterey County Historical Society. So I propose I want to spend a few minutes on that, and then speak directly to the various aspects and facets of Mr. Hathaway's collection, if I may.
Absolutely, go ahead.
And then moving forward to for the purposes of future activities and plans for the collection itself. So let me share the screen. Okay. Can everybody, okay, very good. Everyone can see it. Okay, so a little bit about us. We were founded in 1933, and of course, we have had the Baranda Adobe History Center and 5 acres since December of 1972. So what you're looking at now is the Jose Eusebio Baranda Adobe, built in the twilight era of the Mexican Republic era in 1844. Here is a general view of our campus right here, and I'll get into the various structures. Log House, we saved from being demolished, that is from 1898. Here's the interior of that schoolhouse. Also, we saved from demolition the William Weeks Victorian House, also from 1898. William Weeks was a very important architect. One of his more notable structures, of course, is the Monterey Hotel that Harry Ashland Green had constructed. Filipino labor bunkhouse from 1930. Bataan Memorial, which honors the sacrifices of those who served on the Bataan Peninsula and the Philippine Islands in World War II. Here's the structure of this is the shell of our 12,500 square foot future museum. Of course, within that museum, we have 2 vaults, temperature and humidity controlled archival vaults. Here's the interior of our first vault, constructed in 1980. And of course, we are the custodians of the earliest historical records series for the County of Monterey, including documents dating back to 1770. These are property tax assessment rolls. Also servant of the Superior Court, both civil and criminal divisions, for the purposes of keeping certain records series, for example, the entire naturalization collection, all of those who became citizens from 1850 through 1978, various corporate collections, including the Spreckels Sugar Refinery collection. Interesting artifacts, for example, this Napoleon Cognac, vintage 1804. This is the interior of our second vault that we constructed in 2016. It's noted that both vaults enjoy state-of-the-art fire suppression systems, including what you're looking at now. This canister is a dry fire suppression system by Intelitech, which is responsible for displacing 100% of the oxygen in the air in under 50 seconds. Also, archaeological repository containing well over 500 bankers' boxes, the artifacts evidencing human occupation here in the region for 10,000 years. Larger specimens include Surrey buggy, 1873 commercial coffee mill. Now, this image right here, presently we are in the middle of constructing our historical library and research room, which this project shall be concluded at by the end of this September. So let us now to Mr. Hathaway's collection. So, oh, by the way, this is the Hotel Del Monte, beautiful lithograph from 1902. All of the following images that I will share with you come directly from Mr. Hathaway's collection. His collection has over 80,000 images dating back to the 1840s. Colton Hall, 1891, when President Harrison visited. View of Monterey from the lower Presidio. Sicilian fishermen repairing nets. Here we are, Main Street, with the age of electricity firmly in place, circa 1910. The visitation of the Great White Fleet in 1908. Paving Ocean Avenue in 1922, Salinas 1929, Salinas 1930. Very nice view of Alvarado Street, circa 1948. Alvarado Street, 1900. You can see the breadth and the depth of Mr. Hathaway's collection is extraordinarily marvelous. Interior view of Carmel Mission from 1912. Also, so critically important is the fact that Mr. Hathaway's collection really does honor the contributions of all of those various cultures who came before us and history through time here, as building an amazing legacy that allows us really to appreciate and have what we do these days. This right here is Point Alonis, otherwise known as Chinatown, which had a thriving community. But then shortly less than a month after the 1906 earthquake, it was burned down. So what I'm trying to get at here is the fact that this collection, I mean, it evidences so many important and amazing aspects of the development of our civilization and culture here. And many places, of course, documented visually that no longer exist. Colton Hall, 1890. Now, keep in mind, most of the images that you've seen thus far were taken directly from glass plate negatives. Western Flyer, 1945. Upton Food Products, 1932. One of the finest images I've ever seen of Paraiso Hot Springs, circa 1890. Doc Ricketts lab, taken by his son, as a matter of fact, Mr. Ricketts Jr., 1945. Here's an amazing interior view taken on the same day. Again, collection records many structures that have not existed for some time now, including the Tevis Murray Mansion, which was constructed in 1901 and torn down in 42 or 43, one of those years. Here's an amazing interior view of the, oh dear, it'll come to me. The Toro Products brand, yes, from 1938. But I think there may be quite a few people out there that are unaware of the fact or that Mr. Hathaway was an amazing photographer in his own right, in all aspects, including portraits of human subjects and non-human subjects, city landscapes. This is an amazing image of the Monterey Boatworks from 1972. Here we are in 1971, Cannery Row. Here we are in 1984 with the grand opening of our Monterey Bay Aquarium, which in my opinion truly ushered in mass tourism as we know it today. He also documented other very intense events, including the destruction of various canneries during the 1970s. Again, an amazing portrait artist. Of course, as many of you are well aware, Mr. Hathaway's image collection has been responsible for no less than illustrating hundreds of books and thousands of newspaper articles and magazines through the years. Additionally, you know, it's truly amazing, certain phenomenon that I've really come to realize as a historian and a human being. is the fact that many times we truly don't know somebody, it seems, until they pass away. And when you meet with longtime friends who eulogize them and share memories of their experiences with them, it's often then you truly have a more circumspect view or a circumspect understanding with regard to the person. So knowing Mr. Hathaway all those years, I had absolutely no idea that he was a collector of ephemera. These are some examples. His ephemeral collection, both focusing on our region and the state, date all the way back to the 1860s. This is an extraordinarily fine specimen right here. Here are a few others.
That's it.
It's also a very fine specimen. So there are several points that I would like to bring forth, and then we can open up to general discussion and Q&A. And then please, Kent, Tim, please interject as you will as I proceed with this. So, of course, the collection of this magnitude, it is so amazingly multifaceted by not only what's resident in the collection, but what it can do for the public on so many different levels. But in order to accomplish all of these ends, we'll be taking the following measures. Of course, we're already well on our way with some of them. So, of course, we will be in possession of Mr. Hathaway's standalone website, Pat Hathaway California Views website that he labored for several decades on developing. Additionally, Mr. Hathaway had a website that some of you could very well be familiar with. It is called Fine Arts America. So we'll also be taking that website as well, maintaining and sustaining these websites and continuing to upload additional imagery as time goes on. And really, our true principal goal with regard to public access, I'm really, my goal truly is to have the collection ready for public access by the end of the year. So initially I had said, I believe it was 4 to 6 months. Well, as I've gotten into the collection and truly began to understand its intricacies and what it needed in order to be better prepared for ready public access, including but not limited to the creation of digital online catalogs, complete digital online catalogs, in addition to finding aids, which will require a substantial amount of effort. Again, another thing, someone had asked me not too long ago whether or not we would be keeping and maintaining Mr. Hathaway's inventory or lists and catalogs, or would we actually be assigning different numerical series? And I said, positively not. Mr. Hathaway worked 50 years. He established California Views in 1970, 50 years worth of work. So we intend on sustaining the collection as he organized and curated it as a standalone special collection. And of course, we're already in the midst of working with the California State Library California Revealed program. Presently, they are digitizing a 16-volume set of civil, criminal, and municipal documents from our region from 1770 through 1849. And when they're done with that, this is where we're going to focus working with the state and having them expeditiously digitized as many images as their resources will allow. So the project they're presently working on for us is one of the most substantial projects that they have that they've worked on to date. And Mr. Hathaway's collection is vast and varied, but the importance in so many different levels and aspects of this collection really allows me to make a very cogent and compelling statement to the state, whereby I don't imagine we would have any problems whatsoever with the state not digitizing these materials. How long will that take ultimately to have the entire collection digitized? Now, again, bearing in mind that the collection of historical imagery is approximately 80,000 images, approximately 30,000 has been already digitized. However, there will also be quite the chore to organize, arrange, and develop catalogs for 470,000 digital born images taken by Mr. Hathaway through the years. Additionally, I also wanted to relate, which I should have earlier and I did not, that along with Mr. Hathaway's collection, it also includes the library aspect of it. So in order to curate that and inventory that will be yet another intensive function, given the fact that his library contains approximately 3,000 volumes dating back to the 1850s. So also, it was our commitment, and it is my commitment, which I've followed through on, in establishing an endowment specifically for Mr. Hathaway's collection. And of course, the goal is to raise the endowment, to fundraise for that endowment to the tune of 1.2 million. And we're talking about the earned income, the interest from the principal on that amount, in order to self-fund perpetually a curator entirely devoted to, or principally devoted to Mr. Hathaway's collection, curating it, and of course, attending to research requests and what have you. So there we are.
So James, are you getting research requests already?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's amazing how patient most people can be, and how impatient others can be. So with that said, I beg the general public to truly understand, we're going to need time to do this. This is not something that just comes together well overnight. And every once in a while, when I do get a phone call and I'm treated like a short order cook, it really doesn't make a good show of the person who's calling. Again, at the end of all things, I would request of everyone patience. Yes.
So is the ultimate goal, though, to get all those 80,000 images up online?
Oh, yes. Oh, most certainly. Absolutely. Obviously, for the specific purpose of readily available access. But number two, shall eliminate the unnecessary handling of the original specimens.
That's a big job, I know, for sure.
James, you might quickly let them know about your relationship with the state of California on the collection.
Oh, well, yes, of course. As I said, I have enjoyed, I've enjoyed quite a very good relationship with the state. Projects that they've already worked on for the Monterey County Historical Society include a volume known as the Saladas de Monterey, Town Lots of Monterey, chronicling purchases and indentures from 1833 to 1949. Also, the year before last, they also digitized the index to the Spanish colonial and Mexican Republic era archives. So that index has already been done, and that is resident on the California Revealed website. Presently, they're working on digitizing the Spanish colonial and Mexican Republic archive documents, 16 volumes, 20,000 documents. A lot of work is entailed in that. So, you know, again, we will sustain that relationship with the California State Library for years to come, specifically when it comes to making sure that this collection is ultimately and entirely archived and readily accessible.
For me?
Sorry?
Oh, you said there was a question.
No. We'll get to that one.
Okay.
So how soon do you think by the end of the year, people will be able to go out there and see the collection?
I think so. I do.
That's a lot to take in.
Well, at least a good portion of it. So keeping in mind, I'm sure many of you may have visited Mr. Hathaway at his original location, Pacific Grove. Then, of course, there was the location across the street from Colton Hall, and then finally at his home. Many of you might remember dozens and dozens of with contact sheets, copies of originals, glass plate negatives, reproductions. So all of that will be arranged and entirely in order for people to actually come in, browse through those binders, and of course make research requests.
Right. And I know how difficult that is, and I had to deal with the old Maritime Museum photo collection, which was nowhere in comparison in size to what Mr. Hathaway had. But we still had to go through all the catalog and the glass plate negatives and all that kind of thing, which it took some time to do all that. Luckily, we were able to find a really good home for that material.
So I think that future historians will look back upon this era and truly understand that the efforts put in to keeping this collection resident in our county is one of the most historically significant actions done in the history of this county during this era. So again, the collection is in our county. All right. Now now it's going to take several years of additional work. I look upon this as, and Kent said it so very well in, I believe it was the Monterey Herald, Kent, or the Carmel Pinecone article. Both were quite well done. The fact that this collection is the people's collection. Okay, he put this together for the people. This is his legacy. And so again, how do we truly honor that? We do the very best we can to, as expeditiously as we can, have that collection entirely digitized and again, readily available for the public. So I hope that answered the question to some extent. I really do see it as a labor of love. And, I've been involved with the Historical Society Oh, in May, it'll be 32 years. I first came out here when I was 16. So I've been involved with the institution on one level or another for that long period of time. I'm committed to preserving the legacy of our past. And I see this as, well, it's a professional responsibility, but what I see this, what supersedes this in my mind, it's a personal responsibility to all of those that have entrusted materials to our care, keep all of the efforts put in by, again, Kent and Mr. in order to keep these collections in our county. So I understand and I embrace it's all about honoring all of those efforts in order to preserve these materials. So like I said, for me, it's a labor of love. And I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So anyway.
You don't know, buddy.
So you think you plan to add on to the collection?
I'm sorry, what was that, Kent? I mean, what was that, Tim?
You plan to add on to the collection? I know that Pat got his collection through various means. He bought things, people would donate things to him. He found things even out of the trash bin. So, you plan to add to this collection?
Oh, yes. So before I answer that question, let me just preface when Mr. Hathaway, you know, his efforts with regard to putting this collection together entailed so much time and energy, everything including going to yard sales, dumpster diving, estate sales, rescuing materials that would have otherwise been scattered to the wind and destroyed decades ago. So the Historical Society, previous to receiving Mr. Hathaway's collection, already have approximately 250,000 images. So, and I understand fully that larger collections often attract other large collections. So with that stated, as I did say earlier, we are in the middle of developing our historical library and research room. And I've already had the contractors make provisions for an additional vault, initial provisions for an additional vault to be located on top of our first vault constructed in 1980. So that will be our third vault, which will contain approximately 1,600 square feet. So we have the space, we have the environmental controls. We do enjoy state-of-the-art security systems here. So all that's left to do in time is build another vault.
Quickly, you might mention Steve Travail's donation the day after.
And thank you so much for bringing Mr. Travail up. He is an amazing person in his own right, a superb collector of ephemeral materials. And before I answer that question, Ken, I did want to bring something up somewhat associated with that, and that is the fact that in order to further curate Mr. Hathaway's collection, I will be seeking out people that knew him well, that can provide me additional information in order to further curate the collection. So there's that, and of course, Mr. Travail is one of those people. Now, yes, the day after, right? Mr. Travail is truly amazing. He presented me at Mr. Hathaway's house, as a matter of fact, the first magistrate district judgment book for the city of Monterey, 1850, commencing in 1850 through 1851. So that will also be digitized as well.
So, Sean, maybe this is a good time we can open up other people can ask some questions. We've got questions in the chat room there.
Definitely, we definitely got a couple questions in the chat, and at this time, if anyone would like to unmute themselves and ask a question, or feel free to type them in the chat. So let's see. Our first question is, this is for James. Will the 2+ million from the sale of his house be used to establish his endowment?
I can better answer that, Jim. As the administrator of the estate, we did determine that there were heirs and assigns. Their step grandchildren in Olympia, Washington, and they, in point of fact, inherited the house. If they want to give us some money, that would be wonderful, but that may not be the case.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question was an heir ever found?
Yes, the heirs and assigns in Olympia. They were step grandchildren of Pat's father, or actually had the half sister Nancy. And that's after we went through the effort in France to determine if the brother A was alive, if the brother was available, and what the mechanics, the legal mechanics were relative to his position in the leveling out the estate. And it was one where I mentioned it initially because of the line and chain of title with the property, he did not qualify.
Thank you. And like I said, if anyone does have a question, please feel free to unmute yourselves, and the floor is open for questions.
Or comments.
So I have a general
Well,
question.
Sean, we certainly have an easy crew here this afternoon, I see.
Now, am I able to speak or be heard? I'm Roger Swearingen.
Yes, Roger, we can hear you.
Here. Great. I was so thrilled that this is now public material because I've been using the Hathaway things forever. The numbers are daunting for Jim Perry particularly. If I did the arithmetic correctly, there's still 30,000 images, historical images, yet to be digitized. And I'm wondering, or I think I would find it helpful to see a timeline or some indication of the priorities. What will be done first? What will be done second? Some kind of a thing, even perhaps several trial documents out there to say, if it were up to you, or if we had unlimited time and money, where would we start? Because I'm in the dark. I have specialized needs, so I'm kind of in the dark and saying, well, okay, the collection's open in December, but maybe not till 2 years from now. Do they plan to get around to literary characters or things like that? So that'd be my one observation. It'd be nice to have a little more clarity as to the priorities and what comes when, and that would allow people like me to throw rocks at it and say, hey, could you move this up in the queue or whatever? That's observation number one. A completely unrelated observation is that the existing web information pages, both the California Views, I checked them this afternoon, and Art America, don't let on that Pat Hathaway has died or that this has been taken over. Both of them are very aggressively commercial. Buy this, you get, it looks like you get mugs and T-shirts and you name it. I think it'd be very helpful if you get someone in there pretty quickly to rewrite those, maybe even redirect attention to an information page at the Historical Society to indicate that this is that changes are occurring on that. So that's just my second observation. Anyway, it's great that this stuff is now in public hands.
I can answer his question immediately. We've already signed the documents to get the domain name changed The website changed, and it's going to be the Monterey History and Art Association as the owner of all that material. Monterey County, sorry, the Monterey County Historical Society will have ownership very shortly.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. More, I'm thinking of the public face of it, of what it says, to make it clear that this is no longer a commercial operation, but is, that there has been a change of ownership. Because right now it looks like there's no change from the way it's been.
James, you'll do that as soon as the transfer occurs.
Right? Oh, positively. Absolutely. Of course.
Thank you, Roger. Robin, I see your hand is raised.
Yes. My question is, Pat acquired many collections from well-known photographers. He also acquired collections from unknown photographers, local residents that have to do with the history of the area. Did he document from whom he received the photographs?
Well, the short answer to that is no, Robin. And as we continue to go through various documents that we're finding, keeping in mind that we have approximately 60 bankers boxes of material in which includes, again, transactions he was working on in the past, research requests. All of that needs to be organized in order to really ascertain if he was keeping any ongoing curatorial records associated with the collection, particularly with regard to ongoing lists of photographers. Now, if you look at his website, you can, definitely get a comprehensive understanding of, many of those who are represented, but that is going to take indeed quite a bit of time to truly curate that collection that way.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Sean,
Yes.
Sean, I have a question. What is the geographical scope of the collection? Does it go up over to Moss Landing? Does it go to South County? Does it go down to Big Sur, Prunedale?
Thank you so much, Kathy, for answering that question. I failed to relate the geographical scope earlier, and I should have. So to answer your question, Kathy, the collection itself, approximately 60%, 50% of it focuses specifically on our Monterey Peninsula. Okay, and then of course it extends throughout the region and extends further California. Additionally, it extends all the way on up to Alaska, chronicling the gold rush of the late 1890s and early 1900s, and across to the Philippine and Hawaiian Islands.
Amazing.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, James.
Absolutely.
Erica, I see you have a question.
Yes, I just have a comment. My name is Erica Burton. I'm a research ecologist with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And I just want to thank James and Tim and Kent for bringing this today, but also for all the hard work you're doing. This is a great contribution to the county and beyond. And I think in the future years, it's going to be a great resource for our sanctuary to have access to that. I also am a board member for the Monterey County Genealogy Society. So I want to, on behalf of them, I'd like to thank you. So in future years, our members will hopefully be able to access as well. So thank you for all your hard work. It's an enormous amount of work. I can't even imagine, but thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Neil, I see your hand is raised.
Hi, thank you. And thank you to all the work that's gone on. I can't tell you how apprehensive I've been as a longtime friend of Pat and knowledge of the collection. It sounds like it's really been a good effort to get it into the right hands. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future, James. I do a lot of historical writing. I don't know if you've seen it, but I write a weekly for the Pine Cone, and it was a real stretch to where am I going to find photos after Pat died. So, and Pat offered so much more than just the photos. He was a great researcher himself and could help answer the questions. I mean, he knew the history of this area so well. I started working with him on the board of the Cannery Row Foundation back in the early 90s. So we have done a lot of work together over the years. And I just am really thrilled that at the work you're doing and the plans you have. And it's a big role ahead of you.
Thank you, Neil. We have a couple questions in the chat. Question, James, will you be working with San Jose State University Library School or crowdsourcing, cataloging, and other processes?
We're exploring those options right now, as a matter of fact. We certainly hope to, because we do need all the help that we can get.
Thank you. Another, is the Historical Society open to the public? If so, are the hours listed on the website?
Thank you. We're also in the process of completely overhauling our website. So presently our hours are not on the website, actually. And that's one of the things that we need to fix. So we are open only by appointment only for tours and historical research presently due to COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Thank you. Next question. Extraordinary, bravo, and thank you for taking this challenge on. When available, what is the process for seeking out images? Will there be a use fee? And how do we contact you and be informed?
I think it would be very helpful if we, and I don't know how we want to do this, Sean, but I propose that all of those who attend either email you or you and me, as it were. So we already will be able to have a list. And as we continue to make progress moving forward, we can keep every one of you informed on that.
Yes, I can email everyone James's contact information and also the recording to this link, or link to this recording. What was the commercial website's name again?
Oh, yeah, yes, of course, sir. That was fineartamerica.com.
Thank you. Will the County Historical Society also have copyrights in his collection?
That's a very interesting and complex issue, as it were. So copyrights, looking at copyrights itself, everything 1920, my present understanding, which obviously should be updated because it's ever evolving, is the fact that presently, as it is now, images 1924 and before are open source. It's open source to the public. Okay, so again, speaking to going back to a question that Robin asked earlier, these various unknown photographers. Now we're talking. Now I'm speaking to Mr. Hathaway collecting his part of the image collection post 1924. That is going to take some work, and that is going to be extraordinarily time consuming in itself, because there are quite just in surveying his collection so far, I have come across many amazing images that were not taken by Mr. Hathaway, but are more contemporary, as it were. So when I mean contemporary, I'm taking you back to the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. So, again, it will be, that is going to be a process of discovery. in order to truly understand the effort that it will take to then ascertain who some of these images might be attributed to in order to truly understand the copyright issues associated with them. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And that's the questions from the chat. Does anyone else have any other questions for Kent, Tim, or James?
Anyway, it's very simple. I wanted to hear from James and maybe from Kent and Tim. What are the current plans for fundraising to try and up the endowment for this collection?
So this is where and I might add, the Historical Society just recently received $1,000 to seed the endowment fund. Now so your question, Michael, is it has multi-complexities to it because there will be a lot of functions to it, but the short answer, I'll try to be succinct as it were. Again, as I stated, the $1.2 million endowment with the earned earned interest from the income interest for the purposes of self-funding the curatorial position, focusing on the collection principally. How will we do that? Well, so this is there are grants out there available on a regional level. For example, one, the Dowd Fund. And then I've also been in some preliminary discussions with both the National Endowment of the Arts and the National Endowment of the Humanities as well, leveraging matching funds. So there's that aspect of it. Another aspect of it is I also intend on locating additional sites like Fine Art America that have a similar business model, as it were, and uploading imagery to those various additional commercial sites in order to develop multiple streams of income for the purposes of, again, self-funding a position, and additionally, the ongoing expenditures associated with collections, care, and stewardship.
Thank you, James.
I'm sure, James, that you're willing, anybody is open to donate money to the endowment. All of us out here can get out your checkbooks, if you still have checkbooks, or PayPal and send some money to Monterey County Historical Society.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And again, this is a specific endowment, and in the event that any of you do wish to extend your generosity towards the endowment, that those funds will go directly to that cause.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Any last questions before we wrap it up?
All right, then. I want to thank James and Mr. Seavey, my good friend, who are coming today and being part of the program. I think it's very informative. I know a lot of people have been asking me about the collection for a long time. So thank you guys for coming here today.
Thank you.
And then next month's program, we're going to have my good friend Susan Schillinglaw, and we're going to talk about artists and friends of John Steinbeck and all kinds of fun things. But before that, I want to make another little promotion for an event we're having here at the Japanese American Citizen League Hall on April the 9th. We're going to be showing really the first showing of a documentary film that I've been involved in for the last almost 5 years now, called Enduring Democracy, the Monterey Petition. If you know that story, then you know what it's all about. But we'll be showing on Saturday, April 9th at 2 p.m. And there'll be a panel discussion following the film with myself and Sandy Lydon and Jeffrey Dunn and David Yamada and others. And it should be really a good thing. And if But if you can't wait till April the 9th, you can actually go to CineQuest, the big film festival in San Jose, starting on April 1st, and you can actually see it there. You can stream it at home on your home computer. Well, thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you very much. Special thanks to Tim, Kent, and James for joining us. And like Tim said, we'll be here next month. And also next week, we are having a speaker, Anthony Powell, who will be talking about the history of the Buffalo Soldiers and their connection to the Monterey Peninsula, the national parks. And he's going to be speaking through the eyes of his grandfather, who was a 40-year veteran of the Buffalo Soldiers. So that will be next Thursday at 4 o'clock. And also we have next month on the second Thursday, if there's any people who are interested in genealogy, we have our Finding Our Family Through the Library. So that's also next month also. So we got some exciting things going on, the JCL and the Monterey Public Library, Monterey County Historic Society. So, but thank you all, and we hope to see you guys around soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.